All right, so this is day 2 on the testing how much it's going to take to blow up the shotgun here. The reason I'm doing it is a 2-piece because I tested up to 35 grains the last time, and really there wasn't much very interesting out of it. The last one kind of, the hull stuck a little bit, but that was about it. So I'm starting out at 40 grains of red dot, and I'm going to work my way up to 55 grains of red dot, and then that's the max amount that I can actually fit into a 3-inch hull of red dot. So what I'm doing is actually cutting off the cushion part of the wads and using nitro cards to take up the space, and then eventually the last load I did, I had barely about a half of a nitro card in there so that I can get, you know, the actual seal with the nitro card. So I wouldn't be able to do anything less than what I already have set up. So again, the max I can fit into a 3-inch hull is 55 grains of red dot with 1.5 ounces of shot. So again, this one is 40 grains of red dot, 1.5 ounces of lead. All right, so looking at the shotgun, it looks pretty good. Chronograph 784. I don't think that's reading right today. It seems weird it'd be that slow. So we'll pop it open, see what it looks like. So that one, so right now I'm not able to get the breech to open up. So I got it there. Obviously the hull's not going to come out. You see how much force it takes to get it to push out. So I can already see we got some issues coming off here. The brass is separated off from the hull. And we just got to see if we can get that out of there. I do have some screwdrivers in the truck. We're going to see if we can get that pulled out of there so we can keep right on going to the next one, see what happens. So obviously red dot is definitely getting some issues going on with the pressures here. So definitely an issue with the pressure there. So again, I'm going to go grab my screwdrivers and see what we find out. So I do plan on keep right on going through all the loads I got loaded up just to see what happens, as long as I can get everything pulled out of here. So the biggest issue I think is going to be trying to get that brass piece out. And I think we're getting it crushed down, so I think I'm going to be able to just put the next one in here and hopefully pull it out. So I got the wad coming out, I mean the hull coming out. I should be able to get this brass piece caved in a little bit. And we got her out, so we're gonna keep right on testing. No sense of stopping at this point. So just to show you what everything's looking like here. This is what the primer looks like. So anybody that says that you can tell pressure signs by a primer, I'm going to say I don't think you can, because realistically it looks no different than any other primer. It completely blew off the brass from the hull here. This is what the hull looks like. The damage here is obviously from me pulling it out. But now if you're going to look at like the top of the hull for burn marks or anything, again, I don't know what everybody actually looks at for, you know, trying to figure out pressure pressure signs, but the only thing I see is these two have separated. Is the easiest thing to see that obviously there's a pressure sign. So I think a lot of it is once you start having an issue removing the hull from the gun itself, that's probably going to be your first pressure sign. All right, now we are going to move up to the next one here. I have 45 grains of red dot with an ounce and a half of lead payload. The last one here, obviously we had some issues with pressure. I got these loaded up, so we're going to keep right on running through them until something really bad happens to the gun, or until the gun is not operational. So this one, 45 of red dot. So moving in here, I think I'm noticing something that doesn't quite look right here. Maybe we can zoom in. I can actually see a gap, and there is part of the hull, it looks like, on the outside edge of the chamber there. So we'll see if it'll open up. See what it looks like when we open it up. And we might be to the point where it's not usable, but we'll find out here in just a minute. The speed on that was 11:14. I don't know if that's really important anymore at this time. So that actually is opening up. Actually opened up, but what you couldn't see there is the hull and the brass again has separated. So we got a couple things going on there. So the brass separated from the hull. It's a very distinct marks on it right there. And then the end of the hull was completely blown off there. So again, we're gonna see if we can get the brass out of the chamber and keep going with the next load. Just showing from here that you can actually see the brass inside the chamber. So I was able to get the brass piece out of the chamber. I'm going to throw it back together, see what everything looks like. And we'll continue the test if everything will still stay working. Looks like the extractor ejector still works. I definitely believe I'll bring you in for a close-up. We've definitely got some issues at the top here. It's not completely closing like it had, so we got to be really close to like major damage, or because the back of the breech here is opened up, it may always allow the pressure to come out this way. But I got 2 more loaded up, so we're going to test them and see what happens. So this next one is 50 grains of red dot, and definitely, I mean, I can tell you already right now that we're going to separate the hull from the brass. It'll be interesting to see if it actually does anything to the gun. There is an issue when I close up the breech. It has a gap, and I think it's just going to continue to weaken each time that we shoot it. So I have this one and one more, so we'll see what happens with it. So it sounded different. I haven't watched the video yet, but it definitely sounded different. The trigger guard's gone. Again, I'm gonna have to watch the video to see what happened there. If just the way I got the pulling the trigger hooked up or what, but it definitely sounded a little bit different. 803 feet per second. Again, you can definitely see the wad is coming out the breech of the gun, and we definitely have a much larger crack there than what we had the last time, and obviously it never used to have a crack at all. So we'll open it up, take a look, see what's going on with it. So this was actually pushed down, which is interesting. So I'm curious if the breech was just open right up. And it's not. I'll come around this side, so hopefully everything that I do is visible, because I'm interested to see what everything looks like here. So far the breech doesn't want to open up. Obviously the trigger guard is gone. We'll take the barrel off and see if that changes anything. I don't think I'm going to be able to shoot it again today, even if I can get it opened up, just for the simple fact that I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do with the trigger guard. The breech locking mechanism is likely broken. We just keep losing parts out of it here. The trigger is moving freely. hammer doesn't move backwards. So far that's not wanting to come off. But as far as the barrel, nothing wrong with the barrel. It's all in the, I guess, the breech locking mechanism. Those are the issues. That's the location that I believe it's going to break first at all points and all time. As far as banana peeling your barrel, the only way that happens, I think, is if you have a barrel obstruction. The gap here is probably 3/16. We'll measure it when I get it home, but there's definitely a decent gap there, and I think it's going to be very difficult to open this gun up. I wish I could get it open now, because I do have one more loaded that I would like to test, as long as we're here. Bring it in for a close-up here. So the trigger just kind of floats freely. Everything looks like it's definitely pretty well trash inside there. Again, if you look at this gap here, it's a pretty good gap. The hammer does cock. I can pull the trigger. Well, if I get everything lined up okay. So there's a lot of springs hanging in there, and then obviously this whole inside, the plastic pieces are going to be holding springs, and I think she's broken to the point where there's not a whole lot I can do with it anymore. So that's kind of where we're at. That was 50 grains of a red dot with an 1.5 ounces. Finally broke the gun to the point where we can't use it anymore. So I think the biggest thing I've learned from this is you can definitely way overload the shells before you get the catastrophic failure. Don't just go out and run off of, like go away from load data that's been tested. This is by far an extreme experiment. I think we've seen through every load that I've done, so like the previous day one of red dot, that last load that I did, the hull was stuck and I had to pound it out. It took quite a bit. So you should start seeing those types of signs, but it's way close to, I guess, the catastrophic failures in that sense. So again, don't be going off of load data. If you mess up by a grain or two here and there, maybe, whether it's powder or shot, definitely is not an issue to the point where all the articles we've all read, it's just, there's definitely an issue, but you have to be smart about it. Think about what you're doing. Again, the load that I started with the red dot, max load was 21 grains, 1 1/8 ounce. We're running 1.5 ounces. So not even a comparison. So it's just realistically loading unrealistic, so realistically unrealistic. But anyway, so ultimately we're loading loads that, actually I am, loading loads that you would never even do in a real situation unless you're actually trying to cause damage to something. We saw a lot of signs. The other thing that I thought was neat is as I worked up with powder, the speeds were going down, and I think the reason that was because the explosion was happening inside the gun and not as it goes through the barrel. So again, I don't know, maybe somebody else come up with a better answer than me. So it's definitely interesting because this last one, that was 803 feet per second. I don't think I said that. Definitely, I think the previous day we had it right around 1,300 feet per second. So all the speeds today were much slower than the initial loads. And the other thing is there too is just having more powder doesn't make the round better. I'm guessing most of these rounds that I've loaded up, the pattern has just completely blown out and would be huge for a spread. So again, it's not anything that I would want to shoot. All the testing that I've done for loads for good tight patterns, lower powder usually keeps your pattern tighter. So really a lot learned here. Don't go outside of load data, but if you kind of mess up a little bit, you'll definitely be all right and safe. To cram some of these loads into the hulls, I was doing off the wall stuff, cutting the hulls apart and using nitro cards for spacers. I do have a picture, I think maybe of the one that I loaded with red dot, how much powder was actually in it, and it's just ridiculous. Actually, I got the last one here we could show how much powder is actually in the hull as a comparison to what you would normally put in. So this one here is 55 grains. So this is 55 grains of powder. The sun's hard to see. I'm gonna put my finger like the top of my nail, that's right at where the powder. So there's a nitro card here between that and the wad, and right here is actually where the powder stops or starts and then fills up the rest. So that's a lot of powder in that hull, but obviously we're not going to be able to test this one. I don't think I'm going to be able to do anything with the gun to get her working anymore. So that'll be the end of this testing. So I hope everybody's enjoyed the how much will it take to blow up my shotgun. I was hoping for a split barrel instead of just a broken breech. I really was thinking that we would be able to do something different. I think if you were using like a semi-automatic or a pump gun, it may do different things to the chamber. This gun probably locks tighter and better than those. Maybe not, I don't know. Somebody leave a comment what your thoughts are. If I was able to find a gun that was a pump or a semi-auto, I'd definitely try it. Right now I don't have anything that I'm willing to part with. But if I came across a shotgun in that type of manner that was a cheaper shotgun, I'd definitely keep going with the test. We probably have to restart it all up, but I think your pump semi-autos probably are going to have a quicker destruction than what this chamber is. I think your single shots are going to lock up a lot better, and maybe I'm wrong. But if you have any thoughts, please send them in the comments, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed the test. And if I can get this gun going good enough to the point where I can pull the trigger, maybe we'll plug up the barrel and see if it'll blow up. But if I'll take it home, get it pulled apart, and show you guys what it looks like if I can get it pulled apart. So I do want to show this here. This has to be the back end of this last load that I did, the brass with the primer, because as I was picking things up, it was actually laying on the ground back here, so it would have been behind the gun. We'll do the slow-mo in the video, but that actually looks like it should have came out of there, because if I count for all my rounds I shot today, right now I got 2 here. I got the brass off of that one, and the brass is on that one. I got one in my hand, and the shell's still in the chamber. So if that's the reality of that coming out of there with the primer as it sits there, there must have been quite a bit of flex in that shotgun to do that. Definitely interesting. So I was able to get the chamber open and everything separated up. This is what it looks like inside of the chamber. And looking at this end here, there's like very distinct indents maybe show a light on there. If you look right at the bottom, right about in here, there's an indent from the extractor ejector. Everything inside of this has been broken that was plastic. Now looking at this, I don't know if it's going to show up on camera or not. If you look right here, coming right down along the side, there's a definite crack where it's been, I think that's a weld, or maybe it's been machined, I don't know. But there's a definite crack right there. So we've definitely blown the gun up to the point where it's failed and is no longer able to be shot. Once I get the hull out of the chamber here, I will take a measurement to see if that's expanded any. I did have a measurement from the start, so we'll see what it's actually at. So we'll take it out, see what everything looks like. That came out pretty easy. So that's interesting. Again, I'm by no means an expert, but obviously everything went out, and I'm guessing this is sucked back in because the explosion would have came out the back end of the chamber here, and that would cause that to suck back down in. Because as I look down the barrel, and I'm sure it's not going to show up on camera, there's nothing in there. You can see the brass inside there. We'll see if we can get that out. It shouldn't be too bad. Do my best to keep it on camera here, but I'm not sure if you can see that or not. Yeah, it looks like it came loose. And that's what we have left. I'm curious what happens if I put it back together here. Putting it back together there, we got a really big gap right there. And again, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it apart very easy. It just doesn't really do much of anything. So I had a measurement when I first started the test. It was at 0.806, and we are now at 0.625. So definitely had some expansion there and created some issues with the barrel. Also, if you take a look right in here, if I get the light right here, there's definitely some expansion right around the metal there. The extractor looks crooked. It does not look like it's straight anymore. It's sitting in there real strange looking. And again, you can see the crack right here from this angle much better. We'll tip it on the side, but I think it's probably the easiest to see it is right from the front. So that crack should be right here, right along the edge. And it's going to be right there. See it right there perfectly. So we blew the barrel, but we blew the barrel back at the chamber versus the end of the barrel, which makes sense of where the weakest point would be when the explosion is going on here. Again, if anybody has an opinion on what would have caused that to suck back in. And if you agree with me, please comment in the comments also.